So back when I was a little boy, and the parents showed me a movie for the first time, and passion for film, and it really made me into the big film nut that I am right now. That movie is actually celebrating its 41-year anniversary with a baby I in it. And me, the film buff that I am, it moved my interest in movies from just the sheer entertainment to wanting to know everything about the directors, the screenplay, the production, the actors. It made me want to know people's names. And that's one of the coolest things about the film that I can really tell you guys about. Now let's start off with the actors for the movie. Assembled, kind of on a whim. So some of them. One of the big stories that Richard Dreyfuss, I didn't want to do film, but the studio cast him in it, and they made him go, and he didn't really want to work for a little low first-time director. The director, he only made like a couple of things, from them, and he was tasked to bring this huge movie to the big screen, and that little-known director was now Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest storytellers of our time. But at the time, he was just a young 20-something, kid, who was supposed to make this giant movie. So obviously things, got put interactions that he had between the other actors is wonderful, especially between him and Quint, the character played by Robert Shaw. Now one of, yeah, I know. So even she gets a little disgruntled about this scene.
Japanese submarine slammed him a bomb. 1,100 men went into the water. Vessel went down in 12 minutes. Didn't see the first shark for about half an hour. Tiger, 13-footer. You know that when you're in the water, Chief? You tell by looking from the dorsal to the tail. What we didn't know was our bomb. No distress signal had been sent. Even the list is overdue for us. Nearest man, that man, he starts pounding that shark. He looks right into you, right into your eyes. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless, a black eye, like a doll's eye. When he comes at you, he doesn't seem to be living until he bites you. And those black eyes roll over white, and then, despite all the pop. I don't know how many sharks, maybe 1,000. I don't know how many men, they average 6 an hour. On Thursday morning, Cleveland reached over to wake him up. Bobbed up and down in the water. It was like a kind of top. Upended. Well, he'd been bitten in half below the waist. 5th day, Mr. Hooper, Lockheed Ventura. So as he swung in low and he saw us to a young pilot, a lot younger than Mr. Three. I'll never put on a life jacket again. So 1,100 men went in the water. 316 men come out. The sharks took the rest June the 29th, 1945. Anyway, we delivered the bomb.
And that's, kind of the story, on how it goes. Now, as a kid, you're watching that going, wow, that's really kind of a cool story. As an adult, I've actually shed a tear to see this big, rough and tough man, the one thing, that really gets to him, the one thing that makes him emotional, human spirit, lets everybody know that it doesn't matter, we're all human, we're all connected together. And, I love that. And connections without the main character. Maybe a tough guy, but he was in charge. He was definitely a leader. All he wanted to do was get the shark and make people safe. And the one thing stopping him was Murray Hamilton, the actor that played Vaughn, who was the mayor. The wars, the back and forth arguments that those two had, were wonderful. I mean, they just fed off of each other. It was perfect. Roy Scheider just wanted to keep everybody safe for the 4th of July. Mayor Vaughn just wanted to, get money. It was their main source of income from their, it's the summertime. And if you have a man-eating shark out there, it's not going to to help your town, grow. You're going to struggle. So for the people in the film, there's really, if you sit there and you look at it, there is no bad guy. Everybody remembers that, Bruce, the actual shark, it rarely worked. That's what led Steven Spielberg to create one of the best cinematic devices of rarely showing the monster in a monster movie. It made more fear. When you pair that with John Williams' score of the da 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 da, I mean it's amazing. Every single person knows that song nowadays, and knows that what it makes them feel. I think it's wonderful, and you'll never have anything compared like that ever again. You only really see the shark, maybe once or twice towards the end of the movie, and even then you can see it maybe even be a little bit tacky. But it doesn't matter at that point. It's your mind already creates this beast, this horrific image of a monster, and even when it doesn't look that good, you're still awed by it. Just like when Jaws jumps out of the water at Roy Scheider, at Chief Brody in the movie, you still freak out. It's amazing. I mean, nobody ever thought that little old first-time director Steven Spielberg would, produce something on this massive a scale. And the studio gave him $8 million to make a movie with, and it raked over $470 million worldwide. Nobody could have ever been prepared, for the mass that was Jaws. Since 1933, King Kong. People were lined up across the street with their nickels, waiting to go and see it during the Great Depression. I mean, same effects. Obviously inflation was a little bit different, but you still had the same with Jaws. It's amazing. So I'll leave you with a little documentary made on the Blu-ray of Jaws. It's called "The Shark Isn't Working." It has most of the big stories, the history, the making of the movie. It's absolutely wonderful. It's worth your time to go and see if you're a fan of the movie, just like I am. And we'll leave it saying thank you very much, Mr. Spielberg, for making a movie that we all enjoy. Richard Dreyfuss, your performance is wonderful. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, we'll miss you. Thank you for your performances in that movie. We'll all remember. And still to this day, it makes me feel like the kid watching it for the very first time. It's wonderful. Thank you very much. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think about the movie. Let me know your favorite scenes or any other little pieces of history you've learned about it. I always want to know, so keep it up. So, as a father, one of my things that I've always been very, very excited to do is when these little ones get to the age of wanting to watch these monster movies, I cannot wait to show her Jaws for the very first time. I mean, it's going to be such a very special day for me. I know you're probably thinking, well, maybe you're blowing this to a loud proportion. Like I said, film is a huge, huge part of my life. One of my favorite things to do is show somebody something that they've never seen before. And I can't wait to show these little girls Jaws for the very first time. So thanks a lot, and we'll talk to you soon.